Yo, welcome back to the Feel Free Podcast, the only podcast that'll tell you to chase your dreams and call you out on all your bullshit, myself included. It's been a while since I did that little introduction. Thought it'd be best to get back down to business and do it. Got a good episode today. Got my buddy Marcos here to talk about his wellness practice with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and how that has impacted his life. Got a crazy story coming up on how, he pretty much became a full-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach. How fighting has impacted his wellness on a physical, emotional, and mental plane. So you want to stick around. This is a damn good episode. Next week, I got my buddy Brandon coming by to talk about his journey with sobriety, music, writing some books. Honestly, he's doing some fucking sick-ass work. Don't miss that. That'll be coming out in a week or two. So without further ado, stick around. Got the episode coming up. So what is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, so man, it's a loaded question. So it is a martial art that is heavily rooted in grappling, which is there's no punches or kicks, so there's no striking. It's all grabs and holds, and body manipulation. So turning and folding and twisting the body while on the ground in order to control someone physically. And then the end or the result is a submission, right? Where I'm able to, effectively manipulate a part of you until you give up, right? So like, I bend your arm backwards, or I hyperextend your elbow, or, I fly a choke of some sort that causes the other person to give up or ultimately, pass out or die eventually. But it was heavily rooted back in like Japan. It was like passed down from the samurai. They were like the ones who kind of like developed this kind of art form, and then it kind of grew and migrated into Brazil via Japan, and then the guys who kind of took hold of it in Brazil kind of made it like this huge thing. They basically developed a lot more, kind of perfected it. And they have the art, what's called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So it's kind of its own facet, that's branched off from Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which is a lot more abrasive and brutal. Whereas Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is kind of transformed now more into kind of like a sport. But, like we had said earlier, like it's used still very heavily in fighting to control people.
Gotcha.
So it's a very lot like wrestling and judo in the sense that, it's like throws and takedowns and, ways of holding people on the ground. So those are like the main three when it comes to grappling arts. Whereas the other side, you have the striking, like kickboxing and boxing and taekwondo and karate. Like they have very, very little grabbing or holding. Whereas the other side of it is completely just that. There's no punches or kicks. So.
Okay. Yeah, I had no idea that it started in Japan, which is sad of me to say because I'm very big on Japanese culture.
It's translated as the gentle art, right? But it's not very gentle at times. A lot of times it's not very gentle at all.
Yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah.
When did you start with this journey for jiu-jitsu or martial arts in general, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, I always joke about it because I say I was genetically predisposed to fighting. My parents were really young when they had me, so like they were still in high school when I was, in my mom's stomach. So my dad wrestled all 4 years in high school. He graduated, he joined the Marine Corps, he started wrestling, and then like the late 90s when like MMA started like kind of catching hold a little bit, that's when him and my uncle started training. So I was like, 6 or 7 at the time, and I'd started wrestling pretty young when I was about, 4 years old. And then we kind of migrated into fighting, which, brought along jiu-jitsu and some striking stuff. And so, I first kind of got into that world. I was like 8 or so. And then we started training at the gym that we train at now, actually the gym that I teach at when I was going into my freshman year in high school. So it was, a huge part of my development growing up. It was a huge part of, what we did. I did play football. I did play baseball, but wrestling was kind of like my main sport. And then eventually I kind of left wrestling and kind of focused more on jiu-jitsu. So Yeah, I didn't really have the choice. My my dad and my uncle, I was raised in the gym. They fought, they trained, so it was kind of like a pretty natural path for me.
Yeah, I was going to ask why you started, but it was obviously because you had role models around you who were already in it, you know?
Right, yeah, and they're both my dad and my uncle still train. They still they don't actively compete, but they still, they're still on the mats even almost into their 50s. So yeah, yeah, again, like I said, I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, but I think sometimes it's nice that way, though, you know? You found pretty much the love of your life in a passion like this, and it was already kind of given to you at a very young age, so that's a huge blessing.
No, 100%. And that's actually a lot of why I've, devoted my life to teaching and doing jujitsu and leaving a lot of things behind so that I could pursue this is because of what it did for me as a kid, as a really young kid, growing up, learning how to, navigate the world and, be a man, I guess, as you would. Like, you got to know how to defend yourself. And so, because that was such a big part of my life, I feel the need to give that to other people and to create a space and to have an environment where people, can start even younger than me and take this thing with them for the rest of their life. And, whether they want to be a champion or they just want to do it as a personal practice, like, it's something that ultimately shifted my life. And, I wanted to be that and offer that to other people. And it's crazy now too, because I see, entire families, the mom, the dad, the brother, the sister, all doing jujitsu now. Like, started off with the son who just wanted to do it. Then the son got the sister, and then they got the parents, and like, and so you can see like, generational effects where it's like, okay, like, now you're going to grow up and you're going to teach your son jujitsu, and, he's going to teach his son jujitsu, and we're all going to be able to train together. So that's something that, like, it's a very hidden part of it that a lot of people don't see. But it's a big part of my family, right? It's like, what we do on major holidays. We go and we train and, hang out and beat each other up. And that'll continue on, when I eventually have children of my own someday, and, a wife, and, my siblings have their own children. They're all going to train and wrestle. So it's like, it'll just be something that continues to grow, from now until forever.
That's a nice tradition to have too, and it's healthy for you. Like you said, it helped you navigate the world, and I think other than just being like a physical wellness thing, it's also a spiritual wellness thing, you know.
1,000%, man. Because that's all connected, right? Like, if your body, your mind, your soul, like, it's all intertwined, and you have to do things that bring it all together, that force you to use all of it. There are a lot of
Right.
mindless things, or a lot of things where it's just like just body or just your brain or whatever, but it's like when you can make everything work together like that, there's something that happens there. And jiu-jitsu is definitely one of those things where it's like, it forces you into, like, everything's got to be working at this time, because you can't really leave a piece of that out.
So are you considered a master now?
I am a black belt, so I'm
There you go.
technically a professor of jiu-jitsu. I don't become a
Okay.
master. I want to say, not exactly sure, but it's a certain degree. I believe 5 or 6 degrees in, then you become a master. And that's when they call you master.
So they just call you professor now?
Just professor or coach.
Okay.
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
it's been coach for a very long time, but once you become a black belt, then you're technically a professor. So I'm still kind of getting used to that a little bit, but definitely
So
takes
first
some getting used to.
degree, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a sign of endearment for sure. At such a
Yeah.
young age, it's very impressive though too.
Right, and have so there are people in the gym that are older than me, that call me professor now, and so it's I mean, it's even then, like, it's still it's always been kind of a head trip, just being in a position to to influence people of all ages, right? Even people who are older than you. There are people who are older than you that look up to you now because of it, so it's trippy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not from a place of pride though. You've definitely put in the work, and like you said, you're out here to like help people too. So it's a very wholesome experience between you and the student. So
Right, and I've called a lot of people professor that that I couldn't beat in a fight, like in college. Whereas in, like, most black belts, like, I'll call you professor because you could probably beat me up. So, I've done it plenty of times before. So,
So when did you start teaching people?
so about 2015, 2016, I was a blue belt at the time, which is, still pretty early on in your career, but there's 5 belts. So it's white, blue, purple, brown, black. So you get your first promotion, your blue belt, usually within the first couple years or so, within your first year or two. And then you're able to, kind of teach basics and kids classes and stuff. And so I worked at, it was called the UFC gym. And so I was working as a salesperson first, and then eventually made my way over to the training side. But there were kind of like a splice, whereas like, okay, we have like, weights and we have cardio machines and, turf and stuff, but we also offer boxing and kickboxing and even jiu-jitsu classes. So like, really regular, anybody could, kind of sign up and be a member, and then you could just attend the classes. So that's kind of where I got my start, was like teaching and, helping out in the kids classes and helping some of the older upper belts who were there already, kind of like run the class and stuff. And, that's kind of where I got my itch. I mean, I've been coaching, different kinds of sports and stuff for a long time, but, man, teaching jiu-jitsu has always just been, everything has always made sense there. So it's kind of where I like to stay. But yeah, it's been about almost 7 years now of teaching, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so, yeah, man, it's crazy to say that.
Yeah, it's a long time, but that's awesome. So that was kind of in college though, right?
Yeah. So towards the end of college, right, I was supposed to graduate in 2015, ended up graduating in middle of 2016. So I did a couple victory laps there. But at that time I was, so I was working, and finishing school, and then eventually graduating, and I, kind of stuck with it and tried to like, make it work the whole time. So pretty much since then. So yeah, man.
So I had already asked you this, but I kind of want to get the lowdown on it. You are now a full-time professor, right?
Yep.
What did you do after college? I should be asking, what made you chase this dream full-time instead of taking the route that everyone normally takes outside of college?
Well, so I did actually take the route that everybody did outside of college, and that was trying to find, a really good job. And, I was all over the place trying to find, I wasn't going to use my degree. I mean, I was kind of contemplating it because I got a degree in criminal law and justice. So I thought about, either going to a grad school or, going into being a police officer or sales, right? Sales was, to me, the way that I was going to get it done was, selling stuff. So I worked for a couple different companies. I did some, some like side end jobs. I worked for a very small, it was like a fitness supply company. It was like a small business. I got the job on Craigslist. I was like doing door-to-door sales. It was rough. And then I got a job with from a girl that I knew in college. I started working for Tesla. And so I worked for them for 2 years. Yeah. And so, eventually selling them. And so, I was making really good money at the time. And, but I just hated my life, dude. I hated staring at a computer screen. I hated talking to rich dudes about luxury cars. Like I wanted to off myself. So it was one of those things where it's like, dude, like you just got to do something about it. Like you got to go like freaking burn the bridges and just go figure it out. And so that was April 2019. Right. So I'm like, floundering, trying to like figure it out and still working as a personal trainer. And then, the pandemic hits. So like less than a year after quitting my full-time job, the world goes crazy. And so, jiu-jitsu was deemed illegal pretty much for that first 2 years.
Right.
Because, no contact and it was crazy. But like, yeah, like you couldn't train. You couldn't do anything. Like you couldn't even meet together, So it was like, imagine trying to, meet up with people to breathe in each other's faces and like be really, really close to people, like, and sweating on them. Like, they're like, it was illegal, man. And so it was like a lot of speakeasy type stuff, man. Like the Prohibition days, like people were like, papering their windows and bringing people in through the back door and locking the front door and checking out the windows and make sure nobody was like seeing that we were gathering. Like it was some like 1920s like Prohibition stuff, man. Like it was wild.
It's for the love of the game, though.
Man, and that's the thing is like I made it through that, very slowly soon after, I tried starting my own jiu-jitsu program out of a taekwondo school. A good friend of mine who I had introduced to jiu-jitsu was the owner of a school, and so we started running our own program. But it's like, man, we couldn't do advertising. Like we couldn't advertise and tell people, hey, we're doing this thing, because we didn't know, like, there's people coming out and giving out $2,500 tickets or whatever, like all the kinds of rumors that were going on of horror stories of schools getting busted and stuff. So it was like, you weren't really sure, like, well, can we do this? Can we not? Can we da-da-da-da? And so, yeah, it was a lot of uncertainty in those times for a lot of people, obviously, but definitely in the jiu-jitsu community. Like, it rocked the jiu-jitsu community very hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, even just your personal story too, losing the full-time job 2019 and then deciding to chase your passion, which gets the clamps put on them because of the pandemic,
Right.
And I bet you were dealing with a lot of doubts during that time as well. Like,
yeah,
so, well, I mean, we were doubting the whole world at that point, you know?
Right. Nobody knew anything. That was what it was. It was like, okay, does this help? Does this not help? Masks, no masks, shots, no shots. Like, it was, nobody knew anything and everybody knew everything, like at the same time. So it's like, well, this is this. And, like, no one had any real proof or whatever. So yeah, it was, it made me very anti-COVID, because it was like, man, like that almost cost me my livelihood. Like, it cost me every dollar that I had made up into that point. Like, I'd sold a bunch of stock just to like keep myself afloat and keep my bills paid. And like, I didn't go on unemployment. I got a job at Aldi, friggin', working at Aldi just so I could like make this thing happen. And yeah, man, I've done a few more jobs since then to try and just continue to make this thing happen. And, I still haven't made it yet, but, yeah, man, like you said, like, it's worth it, man. There's literally nothing else that I would rather be doing, so the traditional way.
I mean, for you,
yeah.
For you to come on here and say that you were selling Teslas and you had it made, and then to say that you wanted to off yourself, so you started chasing your dreams, like, that's like the whole point of this fucking podcast, man.
Yeah, man.
Like, I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. That's badass.
That's why I wanted to come on, man, because, like, one, I love supporting my friends, right? I love supporting their projects, the things that, like, you're not making any money off of this yet, right? Like, you're having to come home and dig into these trenches and be here and, set up stuff and whatever, apps and editing and like all of that stuff, goes into whatever it is that you want to do. And so being able to see my friends like, hey, do this and wanting to create something like that makes me happy, because it's like, man, I can go and encourage them and tell them like, man, you need to be doing this. Like, even if you don't make any money off of it, like, you need to be making something, creating something, building something, like, even if it's just to keep yourself sane from your regular everyday life. I don't encourage everybody to just like freaking burn all the bridges, because dude, I burn all the bridges. Like, there's no going back. Like, I don't encourage everyone to do it, but like, most people, I'll definitely say like, yeah, you should be doing something of that, like, because it's just working for the man, dude. It's just not it, man. Like, I think our whole generation was kind of bamboozled into believing that, everything would be all right if you just did all the things that you were supposed to do, right, quote unquote. And, a lot of people are finding out that that's just not the case. Some people are finding out that it is, right? Some people are doing great. Some people that we know are doing awesome, right?
Yeah.
I
I
wish
know
I
some
could be
people
too.
that vibe with that.
Right. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
they like the security
But
and the you know the continuity, right? Like the ability to plan and the ability to like it's a luxury that we don't get as entrepreneurs or contractors.
right, right. Yeah, so I run a bookkeeping business with my mom.
Yeah.
So it's really just myself, it used to be my cousin and her, so just three employees. You could say it's corporate. It's it's not. It's
Yeah.
pretty relaxed and stuff, but like we
Yeah.
have to come in and do all the work and stuff,
Right.
Um I don't know if I could survive in like a corporate America job. It just wouldn't vibe with me. I've always worked family businesses or done like odd jobs or like manual labor and stuff like that
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
And
Um,
it's gotten
eh,
even worse, man. Because like even a company like Tesla, they're based out of Palo Alto, California, which is like Northern California is like the PC capital of the world. Silicon Valley. So it's like it was just like seeing some of the stuff that went on there. It was just like, bro, this is ridiculous. And
yeah,
not in a bad way. Like, but it's just like for my own personal like the way that I operate. Like, I just can't do it, man.
I mean it's when the corporate or when your job or your career or when certain institutions in your life are asking you to be something that you can't,
Yeah.
it becomes draining on your soul is the
Yeah.
problem.
Absolutely.
And so with that being said, it's funny because in 2019 I got sober in May of 2019. So you quit your job April 2019, I got sober 2019,
Right around
and
that
then we
time.
hit the trenches in 2020. So I wanted to ask, I mean, you've kind of talked about it this whole time, but why is jiu-jitsu, why is martial arts, why is MMA, why is this so important to your wellness journey?
Yeah, I haven't found anything better yet. I think that's what it is. Is like because if there was something better, that's what I would be doing, for sure. For me, it's just again doing things that make your brain and your body and your spirit kind of work together, right? Like fighting
Right.
is visceral. There's something inside of us as humans innately that requires conflict. It requires us to go up against things that cause us to react and change and grow, right? Like we need that form of friction in our life. And so a lot of people, they try to avoid it. They try to go away from it. We get comfy shoes and comfy couches and beds that feel like clouds and, sheets that are air conditioned, like we want as much comfort as possible. And, you can go very, very long periods of time without getting any form of discomfort, especially now in the days that we live. And
Oh
so
God, yeah.
things like jujitsu and fighting and, rock climbing, those are like my big three right now. Um, you don't have any choice but to be uncomfortable. Like you don't get the option. And so you're going there and you're faced with adversity, right? Like physical adversity, mental adversity. You got your own body working for you or against you in certain cases. And it causes you to remove yourself from everything that's going on, right? And it causes you to be really only in this exact moment. I have to watch where my hands are at. I got to watch where your hands are at. I got to watch where your weight is leaning. I got to make sure, like there's so many things that I have to be worried about that I can't think about, my crushing credit card debt or, the fight that I had with my wife or whatever. Like you can't think about, you just cannot, like you cannot process those things and do this thing at the same time. And
Right.
so when you're able to focus in on those activities that require so much brain power and so much physical exertion, like even if you just did that for 30 minutes, right? Like when you remove yourself and you go back to normal life, none of that stuff really matters as much anymore. Obviously the problems are still there, right? But like
Right.
your body is more equipped to deal with the stress that you come across in everyday life because you're putting yourself under so much stress, like recreationally. Like you're practicing being under really, really bad conditions and working your way through them through technique or persistence or perseverance. And, you know, when you come out at the end of it, you're like, oh man, not only are you like chemically like straightened out, but like you can see more clear, and your body's like, man, it's just like any other workout, right? But it just creates so much focus and time that you can't think of anything else. And for me, like whether it be running or weightlifting, like it just doesn't offer that. Like I like doing those things occasionally, right? But it's good to feel, to, you know, hit some PRs or get a good pump, or, you know, you maybe get a little runner's high or whatever. But there's just nothing like getting slammed around for, you know, 30 minutes to an hour and, you know, throwing people on their head and just sitting and enjoying life after that, you know? So it's like, I don't know if I answered the question fully, but like, again, the reason why that's important is because I can get that result, and I've yet to find something that will get that result better. That's kind of like the whole spiel.
I think that's a very subjective view of wellness, which is why I asked it, because, you know, however my guests answer it, they usually just go into detail about why the hell it's so important to their life, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that you'd mentioned, like, you can't think about all the shit you're stressing about in normal life. You got to deal with, you know, kind of pushing yourself to the limit and almost like using instincts like an animal. And then afterwards, when you're done with all that, I feel like it's, like you said, it's a lot easier to deal with all the crap that you're dealing with, you know, because you've already put yourself under all that stress.
Right.
And I do that with basketball. So normally if I'm not hurt, I'm usually playing 3 to 5 times a week, you know, and when you're playing 5-on-5, there's no time for me to think about going grocery shopping later and doing meal preps or like paying bills and shit, you know, like in that moment, it is visceral. I like that word that you use. That's nice. And I thought it was interesting that you mentioned comfort a lot and a couple of times, because I have talked about that a couple of times on the podcast. I think that where we are in, what is it, 2023? I think we have a problem. I think we have a problem with comfort, you know?
Yeah. It's a drug, man. Like, you know, and it could affect every area of your life, right? If you allow yourself to become too comfortable in any situation, whether it be a relationship or a job, or, you know, it's like one thing to hate your life and want to leave your job. It's another thing for it to be so comfortable and so cush that it's just like, you don't want to do anything else. You don't want to go outside. You don't want to go out of bounds. You don't want to work late. You don't want to da-da-da. Like, everything's taken care of, right? So it's like, you know, is that a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. Of course not. It's good to be comfortable and, you know, have nice chairs and good furniture and stuff. But it's like, you know, it's like that. Have you ever saw that Disney movie WALL-E, where it's like takes place in the future, and they got the dudes like floating around on like basically recliners, and they like fall out and they like can't get up. Like that's where we're headed, man. Is because it's just like, oh, we got chairs that lean back, that hold your hands up and massage your fingers, and like. And it's good. It's good stuff. But it's like, if you get caught up doing that for too long and you don't get off that couch and you don't, you know, do some push-ups or move around or something, like, it's all going to catch up to you. Something. Move in any way. It literally can't go wrong.
And I have been there. Even in my sobriety, I thought that I was going to have everything fixed and answered. And, you know, I've been sober for 4 years now, and I hit ruts. You know, I hit
absolutely
stuff where I'm not staying up on my working out or like my going out and stuff, because, you know, there's always this comfort to fall back on, right? And I notice internally, and, you know, we're not going to like generalize everybody out here, because like we were saying earlier, we have some friends who do really good in the corporate jobs. Everything's laid out, you know. Some people just want things taken care of, and I think that's great. You know, some people want to be comfortable all the time and don't want to be uncomfortable. I get that. But as humans, as conscious animals, I do believe that there's something inside of us that wants to be pushed to that limit, you know? And I see red flags in my life now because I've trained myself. If I'm too comfortable for like even a couple of weeks, I'm like, I gotta fucking do something.
You gotta do something.
I gotta
yeah.
go run. I gotta go hoop. I gotta do something, you know,
Right.
because I've been sitting on this couch feeling a certain way for too long, you know.
Right. And it can be, that in itself could be debilitating, right? It's just like, and I see it all the time because it was me, right? Like, you know, I always tell people who train jiu-jitsu, like when they first start out, like have a plan, right? Like 2 days a week in cement, come hell or high water. These are the 2 days I'm going to be in training. Because what happens is they see the schedule and they say, okay, I have class 7 days a week. I'll just go whenever I can. You know, you start off good, maybe you do 3 days, then you feel a little sore, so you take a day off, and then you come for another day. And then you're like, oh, well, I got the kids, they got this, and we had soccer practice, so I skipped that day, and then I was supposed to go this day. And then skipping 1 day turns into skipping a week, and skipping 3 weeks, and skipping a month. And now you have to face the music and go to class. And all these dudes have been working out for the past month and you haven't been. So it's like now you got to walk through the door and get what's coming to you. So it's the same way, right? Like as long as you just like, we'll just, that's how quickly it happens.
Shit, I've done that before. Yeah, I've been there.
You know how that goes, man. You know how it goes.
I think most people in this country have been there, honestly.
Yeah, and it's like I said, and that's what, again, why I'm such a huge advocate for jiu-jitsu, especially when it comes to health and fitness, is because when you come in and you take your class, like we run your warm-ups, we tell you what we're doing at first, then we tell you what we're doing second, then we do our drill, then we do our rolls, and then you're done. An hour and 15 minutes, and you're in and out. And whereas, like, you know, if you're responsible for your own fitness or whatever, and you know you've done it a million times, I'll go to export, I'm going to do legs today, and you do a couple bicep curls, take a couple selfies, you know, check out some chicks, and you've been there for 3 hours, you've done half your workout, you know, and it's just like, well, I haven't got any results. Well, you know, look at how you're spending your time, you know. So it's like with something like jiu-jitsu, you come in, you get your ass kicked for an hour, and then you leave, and F you, we'll see you tomorrow, you know? Like, that's how it goes.
We talked a lot about, like, the individual and how this has affected you and how this affects people who do go and use it. But one thing that just kind of came to mind was you mentioned people go to the gyms, they do the regular workouts, and I'm one of those people. I do my solo stuff, but then when I hoop, I'm obviously playing with a bunch of people. There's a community aspect to this jiu-jitsu thing. Not even just the professor and the student, but everybody there is there to learn and to grow. Right. How has that affected you?
Well, I mean, yeah, I always say, you know, jiu-jitsu, it's a personal journey that's practiced in a group setting. And you can't practice it without at least one other person. You know, so you have to, at the very least, say hello to somebody, to the guy in front of you. Like, you at least got to shake his hand before you try to rip his head off. Like that forces you into communication. It forces you into interaction. And that's where you get where a lot of people call jiu-jitsu a cult, because people become so obsessed with it, is because it's like, I go there, I see all the homies, you know, I see the dudes who started around the same time that I did. I see all the dudes that have been helping me out, that have, you know, been there for years before. I see the dudes who work in the same field that I work in, or, you know, they have the same amount of kids that I have. So it's like, I'm automatically placed into a place where it's like, I know all these dudes. And like you said, like, it's not everywhere. It's not every single sport. It's not even every single martial art where everybody in one room is headed towards one thing. Everyone has their own reasons for being there. Yes, everybody has their own, right? But we're all looking to do this one thing, and that's mastery. So when you have that environment, it's very encouraging. It's very uplifting, and it's very like collaborative. And of course, dude, I love, you know, I can't lift with other people. I can only lift by myself. Like, because I have to do my numbers, do my sets, like do my rest time. Like, I don't want to talk. Like, I have headphones in, like, leave me alone. Right. But you can't do that in a jiu-jitsu gym. Like, you can't wear headphones and just muddle through your workout
No.
without talking to anybody. Like it just doesn't work that way, you know? And so, yeah, community is the word, right? Is where it becomes, it's like, you know, we obviously have our own language and our own way that we talk about things and our own memes and our own, you know, different jokes and stuff. Like, so you become like, you know, part of the subculture, right? So that's kind of what draws people in too, especially, you know, people who don't have that anywhere. Like maybe they don't have a family, or maybe they don't have friends, or maybe they don't have, you know, constructive people in their lives. So they go to a gym where, you know, everyone's working out, everyone's training, everyone's trying to get better. And you get mixed in with those guys. And then, you know, you guys get promoted together, man. We started when we were white belts. Now we're blue belts. Now we're brown belts. Now we're black belts. And we've known each other for damn near 15 years now. Right. So, and so that's kind of, again, it's a hidden thing that a lot of people don't think about on the front end, but you kind of find it out later on as you continue on through the art, right? Where it's like it becomes tighter and tighter knit, and the community itself, you know, even across the world, really isn't that big, you know? Like, so everybody knows everybody somewhere along the line.
Yeah, it becomes more than just an individual journey at that point, because you're doing it with people. And I think, you know, with the rise of technology and everything that we have been dealing with, and especially what happened with COVID, it kind of gave everybody the wrong impression that we're alone, you know, or we're more alone than we make ourselves believe. And now we're trying to get our footing with coming back into community options like this, you know, or, you know, it's not always just a text message or a message on online. Sometimes you just need to go out and be around people, you know?
Yeah.
Even like you said, even if you're going to reach some sort of goal, especially like a physical goal like that, you know? I never understood when people came to play fives on the basketball court with their AirPods in, like literally like 5-on-5. I'm like, I'd have one kid on my team, and I look at him and I'm like, how?
What could you be listening to right now? Like, what is it like? What gets you in the mode to play such a? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talking and a lot of things that go on. I don't get that in.
Right.
I've never understood that.
We usually lose those games too. Yeah. And I don't say anything after. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to say something, you know. But I'm just saying.
There's some correlation here. Causation, correlation. Right. They may not be the same thing, but no, yeah, absolutely, man. And so. Yeah, I think that, you know, that's why jiu-jitsu has become so popular now in a lot of different spaces, you know, in the first responder space and the mental health space, you know, military, you know, really everyday people and addicts especially, you know, because it's like when you become sober, when you remove yourself from certain environments, that need or that desire to be a part of something doesn't go away. And that's when people relapse, is because they don't have things to put in those places where there was once things that sat. And so, you know, when you give I tell people I've had a lot of addictions in my life, but jiu-jitsu is by far the most constructive. But that's just because of what it offers. It's just because of the all-encompassing aspect of it. It's not because there's magic or there's something that somebody knows that nobody else knows, but it's the whole package. And if you allow yourself to kind of be involved, then it kind of pulls you in and gets you, you know, kind of acclimates you the way that you should be, right? And so it takes a lot of place. And whereas when people would use or go party on a Friday night, they go sweat it out on a mat for 2 hours, and then, you know, you're so exhausted you can't even go out. You know, you just go home and go to sleep. And you create that, you know, pattern time over time, and you know, before you know it, you're, you know, X amount of years sober, or, you know, you don't have those desires anymore because you're just not in that headspace anymore, you know?
Right. You're more in tune to the healthy side of your body, your mind, and your soul, you know?
Yeah. And again, it's like jiu-jitsu starts to like suck everything up, like in your life. And like, that's what it becomes the center, because it's like, okay, well, I can't eat honey buns and Monster Energy drinks for breakfast anymore. I gotta like maybe eat some oatmeal or maybe eat some whatever, some eggs or something because I gotta go train and I'm not trying to throw up on the mat right now, right? And so then, yeah, and then so then what happens? You go and you get exhausted and you want to eat something good after. You don't want to go to McDonald's and ruin the workout that you just had. And you've exerted so much energy that you just go home and you kind of go to sleep or you see all the stuff that makes its way in, the recovery stuff and the ice exposure, the cold exposure, like all of that stuff kind of like seeps its way into jiu-jitsu. And then you start to learn, okay, well, I'm going to start doing yoga or start weightlifting or start running because I want my jiu-jitsu to improve. And so then you just start picking up more things along the way, but it's all centered around like, I just want to get good at jiu-jitsu, which is like,
right.
It's call it what it is, whatever it is, good or bad, but it's constructive and it brings about other constructive things.
Why do you think that people struggle with finding something like that in life though? Like you found it. I have basketball, I'd like to say. My brother has running.
Yeah.
I know like my one buddy used to be, well, him, Chris, Megan Beer used to be really into martial arts. He was taking martial arts for like 2 years. But not a lot of people have something like this. Why do you think it's difficult for people to go and try new things as we get older to find that thing,
I think that the older we get, the more set in our ways we become. And just like we had talked about earlier, it was like seeking comfort and seeking softness and comfortability is nice, right? Soft blankets and warm sheets, like those are great, right? But it's like, but going out and humbling yourself and breaking your body down and sweating and grunting and failing. It's just not very appealing, right? It's not appealing to me. I still hate it. Like, but that's my whole life is like, and I now have to deal with people who hate it too. Like, and try to encourage people to continue in their journey and to continue training but at the end of the day, dude, it's fucking hard. Like, and it's only the hard stuff that's really worth it, in my opinion. Like, people like video games, and I don't want to knock anybody else's whatever, right? But it's like, there's just certain things that they're just not going to break you down and force you to grow again. And plenty of people are okay with that. Like they don't care to have that stuff in their life. And so, it's hard, dude. It's really hard to start jiu-jitsu in your 30s or your 40s because it's, you also have other insecurities. Like, I'm a grown ass man and I'm going to go get physically dominated by another grown ass man. Like, they have families and careers and like mortgages and stuff.
It's a pride thing though.
Yeah, absolutely. And but it's hard, dude. It's hard to put on that white belt, man. It's hard to go into a room full of killers and be brand new and to not know everything. And, we come further and further away from that the older that we get, I think, like we want orthopedic shoes and we want, like the stuff that's going to like, that we didn't prepare for when we were younger. So it's like, well, now you got to pay the piper, now you gotta do the little bit of extra stuff. And, it's hard, man. It's a lot of people just don't care to do it.
It is very humbling to do new experiences and not even just like physical ones, just to like go out and like meet new people and do new things. 'Cause, college made it very easy for you to just like go do things, meet people and all that crap. Then we get in our late 20s and early 30s. And then it's like, if you don't go to the bars, you're not meeting new people. If you're not a part of something like jiu-jitsu or a gym, like playing basketball, you're not meeting new people and you're not getting in shape. And they just like shove our phones in our face and they go, look at this screen, look at this screen. Look at this so bright screen right here. Yeah, it's so pretty,
Funny screen.
And for people like us, and I know a lot of people in my life are the same way, there's a red flashing light that usually comes with too much comfort,
Right.
And I know that as I get older, it doesn't mean I can't break those limits. It just makes it a little bit more difficult, you know?
Yeah, it requires a little more planning,
More
a little
effort.
a little more elbow grease. And,
Yeah.
yeah, man, yeah. I mean, for me, it's like one of those things where it's like, when I haven't trained or I haven't worked out, like I start going like crazy, dude. I start
Cuckoo.
like
Yeah,
getting
for
really,
sure.
like really anxious and like really snappy. And it's just like, man, I gotta go do something. I gotta like let this out. Like, and again, yeah, like you said, man, not everybody has that. And it's unfortunate because what ends up happening is it ends up, like I said, it's fighting is inherent in your body, and it's like you need that something, and if you don't, then it just like oozes out of your eyeballs or like falls out of your ears, and like that's when you got like dudes who like catcall or like who are like overly aggressive with women, or women who like are very catty and like they gossip and they like want to like, you know, like it manifests itself in
Yeah.
negative forms that it just like literally like oozes out of your pores, like you just drank a bunch of vodka the night before, you know, and you can like smell it like ruminating off of you. Like, it's the same thing. If you don't get rid of that like energy,
it's just that, yeah.
it just like oozes out, and you can't, and then at that point you can't stop it, and you may not know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to come out of your mouth. And so it's like, for me, I just got to have that constant like releasing, that dump and release, because if not, I'll put hands on somebody out here.
It's getting control of your energy, you know.
Right.
Because we all have that primal energy, like we've said before. We're still animals, you know.
It exists. Like you can't.
It does exist.
You can't say it doesn't. Like, no matter how sophisticated we get as a society or as people, you can't deny that those things exist.
Right. And before I had taken health more seriously, I used to, you know, smoke a lot of weed, or I used to drink, or I used to eat very unhealthy food, because these were things that would take that energy I had, and it would just like shove it really deep down. Yeah, suppress it, you know.
Sure.
And then, you know, 8 years goes by, and finally the lid blows off the top, and I'm like, I have to do something.
Gotta make a change.
And yeah. And it started with taking my health seriously, you know, physical, mental, and emotional, finding something like that. And it looks like you have taken this journey to also help other people find that as well. And that is a beautiful thing, man, honestly.
Yeah, it's like I said, I don't know if I'll do it for the rest of my life. I think I'll always teach jiu-jitsu or some form of martial arts, just as a general practice. But yeah, man, like I said, I've never wanted to do anything else more than this right now. And it's because I believe that the world just needs it, man. I believe that the world needs to know how to fight. And if everyone in the world knew jiu-jitsu, the world would be a better place. You know, that's like, I firmly, wholeheartedly believe that. And, that's just why I do what I do, man, because I believe that kids need this, you know, wives need this, women need this to defend themselves, men need this so they can learn what it's like, you know, to grow in a skill and be humble. And, you know, I believe that whatever quote, I don't know who says it, it's really overused now, that like, was it hard times create strong men, and strong men create good times, and good times create weak men, and
Create
it's just
weak
a cycle.
men, yeah.
I believe that, I don't know who said it, you know, it's really overused now, but I believe that we're in hard times. And through these hard times, great strong men will be created. And, you know, things are very dark right now in the world, and they may get darker, but that's what creates and spurs on men like myself, men like the men in my family, to help other people on this path and say, okay, you know, you don't have to succumb to the darkness, right? That's not the way that it has to be. And those small movements, those small efforts, right, is what starts to move the needle in the other direction, right? It starts to create strong men that are going to continue our society and hopefully not, you know, blow it up or lose it in a fight, you know? Like, you know, that's all that we can hope for. So Yeah, man. I think we're in a bad time right now, but I think that it's created a lot of opportunity for some strong men to arise.
I totally believe that. I think this is an important time of reflection for everybody, and not even just saying men, but women in general, people in general.
People in general, man. And I can only speak really for men because I'm not a woman. I can't speak, what it is to be a woman. So, go
do you
ahead.
teach women though in class though, right?
Oh yeah, I would say in the jiu-jitsu for women, really grappling for women in general, has grown more in the last 10 years than it has since its inception, and more in the last 5 years than it has in the last 10. Like, it's growing like tremendously, and I love it, dude. I absolutely love that that's a thing, right? Because again, I think that women need jiu-jitsu more than men, just because of the way of the world that we live in, and women need to be equipped with the ability to make things happen, right? To create and protect themselves in certain situations. And so the fact that they're now getting, kind of carving out their own little section of the market, like, it's incredible. It's great to see, little girls, 3 years old, 4 years old, learning how to defend themselves and, handle themselves in a physical situation. Because again, like, I've seen what it does for little boys, right? Being a little boy growing up in that environment, and it's like everybody needs this. It's not just boys who need this,
Of course.
And it's not, but there's a lot of things that they're battling. I mean, women battle a lot, right? Like even societal pressures of like, women aren't allowed to get dirty or be sweaty or to be rough,
or be strong.
Yeah, for sure. They got to be this little dainty, spring flower, and it's not the case, and the empowerment that comes with, moving your body and getting a strong body and learning how to, dismantle another human being, like the empowerment that comes through that is unmatched in a lot of other spaces. And again, I'm super grateful that I'm super glad women are starting to kind of make their way in and starting to carve out their own little piece of it, because it's like, man, they need those spaces just as much as men do.
Right. Yeah, and I think that also helps the men in there too. I think they both help each other by being in there together. You know?
Absolutely.
So it's not always so, because they try and, I say they, I'm like, the world tries to split us up all the time instead of us just realizing that we're all in it together, and you've used the word humility and humbling experience, like getting thrown around, tossed around and all that stuff, and I think everybody going through a very humbling experience is good and is important to grow into the people that we're supposed to be. So I think that's even better that we're all doing it together.
1000%, man. And it's like, and bringing the world together and being able to interact with people of all sizes and shapes is good for you. But I believe also just like the camaraderie that comes with, it's different when it's a bunch of dudes hanging out and then there's girls involved. Like when it's just dudes, like everybody can relax and everyone can say what they want to say, and they don't have to feel like they got to put on a show. And the same goes with, when you're in an environment of just fighters or just men or just women fighters. Like, you don't got to worry about what your hair looks like. You don't got to worry about what your shirt looks like. Like, to just go in and train and just freaking do your thing without having anyone bother you or look at you weird or whatever, like, it's priceless, dude. And people need that, again, everywhere. They need it. They require it. Like, they can't go without it. And plenty of people do, man. They go deprived of these spaces and these places where they can express themselves freely. And, jiu-jitsu provides that, man.
Absolutely. Now, is there any tips for anybody out there who might be interested in trying out jiu-jitsu or a martial arts in general, or any tips for people who just need to be uncomfortable, how to start, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, first things first is shop around, man, because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. different gyms have different vibes, you know, different goals. You know, there are gyms where they focus heavily on competition, or they focus heavily on fitness, or they focus on one kind of facet of it. So, you know, if you're interested in really, you know, getting involved, I would shop around and say, okay, I'm going to go try a class at each one of these gyms, you know, and I'm going to talk to the ownership and the management and the instructors and, you know, and the people there. And, do I see people that look like me? Do I see people who are friendly? Do I see people who care that I'm there? Or are they just, you know, they roll their eyes because I'm a new guy, you know, like, shop around and see where you can find yourself fitting in, because you're going to have to spend a lot of time there, right? If you want to be really good and you want to really sink your teeth into this thing, you better be willing to spend Friday nights there, Saturday mornings, Monday mornings, Thursday afternoons. Like, you got to be willing to be there and spend time there. So if you don't like it, or, you know, you feel everyone's kind of different than you, or they're all younger and you're kind of older and it's like, you know, not really fitting for you, then, you know, go find somewhere else and go somewhere that works, you know, because you're the one who's got to do it. You're the one who's got to spend the time and your money, and you got to go, you know, and then do the activity itself, which is not always the most fun thing to do. I mean, it's a lot of fun, of course, but, you know, coming up, learning how to do it, like, it's not always the most fun. But yeah, so that's the thing, is like, just shop around. Like, it's not everything is a one size fits all approach. You know, the first place you go to may not be the place for you. Or it will be, or you'll go and you'll try it, and, you know, everyone will be really cool, and, you know, you meet some friends first day, and the instructor's funny, or, you know, he's got some cool skills, you know, so it's like, you know, and you're there, and then just show up, man. Just walk through the door. For the second half, the people who need some uncomfortability, like, you know, they want to make a change. They want to get fit. They want to be more confident. They want to stop eating junk so much. Like, then you got to put yourself in an environment that's set up for you to win. Export, you know, LA Fitness, weightlifting, getting a personal trainer. Those things are great. Those things are steps, but they're not always going to be able to be that there for you. So it's like, you have to have someone else there to pick you up, to like kind of like spur you along. And like, and for me, for someone like yourself, it'd be your instructor. It'd be me. You know, we have conversations, or we talk, or we, you know, chop it up, or just, you know, I can help you along the way. Okay, help you with different positions or things like that. Like, and then you start to grow and like, oh, okay, like, and you just, you know, go off for the races. Like, it's some people don't need they just need the permission. They go and they do it, and then boom, they're hooked, and they just want to grow, and they want to learn, and they want to, you know, they want to get better. And, you know, some other people, they got to shop around, they got to get comfortable a little bit, you know, but, you know, just got to show up. That's it.
I think showing up and, like you said, shopping around, I think trying to find a martial arts that's, or not even just a martial arts, but just something that's good for everybody, you know. But I think you have to be uncomfortable and try a bunch of things first. You got to walk into some places that you haven't walked into, see some people that you haven't fucking seen ever in your life.
Right.
You got to be uncomfortable, and if you didn't like it, you walk out of there, and you don't even have to see anybody ever again. You know,
probably never see them ever again.
Just exactly.
Right.
You got to just keep rocking new experiences, get a good sweat on, and, you know, try and make the changes in your life that everybody knows they can innately make deep down, you know.
And it's hard, man.
Well,
it's a lot easier said than done, but
it is. Honestly, I mean, it took, you know, we said that 2019 was the year for both of us. It's like, you don't have everything figured out ever, really. And I know people that have changed their lives in their mid to late 30s and even 40s, you know.
Absolutely.
But if you know that you can, you got to take that first step and be really uncomfortable. But I promise, after you take a couple really uncomfortable steps, they'll get more comfortable after that, for sure.
It's definitely the hardest part.
For sure. That first couple steps, I'd say the first one.
Right.
Yeah, I think we hit a lot of good points. I think this was a damn good conversation, honestly.
Absolutely,
what do you think?
Man. I appreciate you having me on for a chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll I'll be dropping links to everything. Kind of keep you posted, drop links to you, collaborate on all this good stuff. Probably going to go up in a couple of days. I'll let you know on when that happens and everything.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you coming out, though, and honestly, I'll be looking forward to having you on again so we can talk more wellness. I think this was a great fucking conversation.
Absolutely.
Would love to do it again.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks. Absolutely. Thanks for everybody coming out, sticking around for the episode. Y'all have a good rest of your day, night, or week, and peace out.
Bruce, see you.